shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder. King of glory, King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Sing, worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, worthy is the King who conquered the grave, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, worthy is the King who conquered the grave, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, worthy is the King who conquered the grave, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Amen. Amen.
Well, amen. What a wonderful way to be able to start our service this morning, church. It is so good to be able to be with you virtually again this morning. We do miss all of you guys filling the sanctuary this morning, but just know that you're still in our prayers. I hope that all of you guys are staying well, that we have good health out there. But man, we have another opportunity again this morning as a church to come together and worship the one true mighty God. So I just pray that that's what you're doing this morning. Just get your heart ready for worship today. I do have just a couple things I want to go over with you this morning. The first one is our church website. If you have not recently been on the church website, it is www.vanavenue.org. You can just type in vanavenue.org or .com. So if you mess it up, it'll still take you to our website. But on that website, we have this week put on a lot of new resources that weren't previously there. So on the main page, you will see how you can connect with us via Facebook, YouTube, and our new Instagram page. So you can go on the main page, it's right there, and get to any of those three sites. And then also, if you click on the More tab, we have put in some resources for our Kids Connection ministry, our children's ministry stuff, and then also there's the adult Bible study stuff as well on the More tab. So you can just go to there, and then you will find some resources. There's one on there for discipling your kids. There's another video that Pastor Jason put on there from Lifeway. So we're just trying to get more stuff out to you guys that we would normally do on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night, Sunday night type deal. Just give you these resources and make them available to you each and every day so that you can have them. But other than that, man, we are excited to be here this morning, excited to get to worship together virtually. So I'm going to pray for us, and then what an amazing way to start our service this morning. Just take a moment during this prayer and remind yourself everything that Christ has done for you today. Even since you've been up this morning, He has already been working in your life. So just give Him thanks, give Him honor, and give Him praise for that today. Let's pray together. Father, I do thank You for this time that we have together to come before You in many different households, many different ways this morning, whether it's on a TV, if it's on a phone, whatever it be. But Father, the main thing is that we come in Your name. And we come together as one body in many different households to worship the one true mighty God. So Father, that's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to give You all the honor. We're going to give You all the praise and all the glory that You deserve. Not only for everything that You've done for us in the past, what You're doing today, but what You're going to continue to do in the future. So Father, my prayer is this morning that You will just continue to work through us. Continue to work in Van Avenue Baptist Church, Lord, to be a light for You, to be able to go out into our community and share Your love with our neighbors. Father, we have such a great opportunity before us during this time to just show the world that we're here and that we care, but ultimately that You love them and You care for them. So just use us in that way, Lord. And Father, this service this morning, I just dedicate everything that we do here for You. May it just bless You, and I just ask that You bless this time that we have together. Lord, I love You, and I give You all the praise and all the glory today. Amen.
Let's continue together as we worship in song today by singing the song 10,000 Reasons. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. You're rich in love and You're slow to anger. Your name is great faith is failing, the end draws near, and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. And bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship Your holy name. Worship Your holy name. Lord, I worship Your holy name. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for You. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for You. We live for You. Holy, there is no one like You. There is none beside You. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who You are and fill me with Your heart and lead me in Your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Is worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for You. Oh, we live for You. Holy, there is no one like You. There is none beside You. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who You are and fill me with Your heart and lead me in Your love to those around me. Holy, there is no one like You. There is none beside You. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who You are and fill me with Your heart and lead me in Your love to those around me. Lord, that's what we ask You to do in our hearts today, to open our eyes to those that are around us, even in the most trying days and the most trying times. May we reveal to those that we love, that we know, that we can reach on a daily basis. May we reveal to them the love of Jesus. we show them that we can build our life on a firm foundation, that solid rock that is Jesus Christ our Lord. We trust you, Lord, and we praise you here in this place today. We praise you in our homes today. We praise you wherever we find ourselves this morning, lifting our voices together, knowing that you alone are worthy to receive that praise. We ask you here to be blessed by it today. Open our eyes to see you. Open our eyes to see what you have for us today. Amen. I will build. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is the firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Amen. Amen. Thank you for your worship of the Lord this morning in song. We're just going to continue today worshiping the Lord together. We come to this time in our service. This is always the time where we continue in worship by giving of our tithes and our offerings. And Pastor Larry's going to come up here this morning and share a little bit about that with you as we continue on.
What a joy, what a privilege to serve a church who during these times continues to be faithful in their giving. I want to thank you for those that have put your offering envelopes in the mail. You've dropped them by the church. You did it on our online giving that has been set up. And so thank you so much. And we appreciate you doing that and ask you to continue to do that so that we can continue to do our ministry here for you and with you during these days. I'm going to ask Jason to come and give you a little bit more of an update in case you didn't catch it last week on how you can do online giving.
So as we continue to develop this platform for giving, to give you opportunities to do that outside of either mailing in things or coming here, if you will go to our website, vanavenue.org, you will find at the very top of the homepage a word that says giving. If you'll click on that word, it will take you to the interface for Lifeway Generosity. Lifeway Generosity is the giving platform that we use here at Van Avenue Baptist Church. There's a tab on there that will show you how to download the app for your mobile device that you have, or certainly you can give right there on the website. You can choose the amount, you can choose the designation, like if you want to give to the Annie Armstrong Easter offering, or if you want to split your gift between that and the general tithe, you can do that as well. Currently, the two ways you can give are with a credit card or debit card, and we're just waiting on everything to clear and work out for Lifeway to open up the window for us to be able to give with an electronic check. The fees are based pretty simple. There's a flat 30-cent fee for every transaction. If you give with a debit card or a credit card, there's a 2.69% fee as well on that. So if you were to give a couple $100, you're going to see that on there plus the 30 cents and then that 2.69% of that transaction. As soon as the e-check is up and running, it will only be the 30-cent flat fee. It also gives you an opportunity to include those fees in your giving as well. If you use this online giving platform, not only will you see the giving immediately, you'll get a response from the church and email as soon as you give, but then also you'll be able to log into your account that you set up at any time and to see a record of your giving. So you can print your own giving statements and all types of things like that. So it's a great tool. If you normally give by tithing, by giving a check or a cash donation, and you do that here at the church, certainly continue to do that as you would like. But for those of you that maybe never given before, because you've never had a means to do it or never felt comfortable doing it, this could be a way where you could do that for the first time. One very interesting piece as well, and I had somebody ask me a question about this week, that's why I'll bring it up, is somebody asked me, well, what is this donation tab all about on the website? Well, Lifeway Generosity offers the ability to give other things as well beyond just cash or checks or things of that nature. If people have property or a car or things like that, you can actually donate those things if you ever wanted to, and someone from Lifeway will contact you and actually work out how that donation happens. Then once those assets are sold, then the proceeds then are sent to the church in the form of a check. So I know that sounds crazy, but it's just another way that if you don't have financial resources to give, or maybe you've had something that you've been sitting on for a while and have wanted to get rid of, or that's just another way that instead of giving it to the church and us having to deal with the sale of an older vehicle, Lifeway handles that for us and then sends the proceeds to us in the form of a check, and then gives you a record of that giving as well. So many ways that people are doing things that are a whole lot different than we've ever done before. But we're in days where we have to do things like that. As Pastor Larry said, we appreciate all of you that give to continue to support the Lord's work here at Van Avenue Baptist Church. And certainly more than anything, we as a staff, as we reach out and minister to you, this is not our primary goal, is to make sure that we know everybody needs to give. That's not why we're here at all. But we just want to share with you this today to let you know that if you're a person who gives normally, it gives all the time, we want to give you other resources and ways and avenues that you can do that. And if you're someone who's never given before, we want you to consider that and be able to continue to support the ministry and the work here at the church. God bless you. Thank you.
Let's pray, and Miss Lynn's going to play a song during this time of worshiping and our giving. Father God, I thank you so much for who you are. I thank you for loving us. Lord, even though right now things are different for us, those buildings are basically empty, except for those few that are here to do the service. Father, I just lift those up to you that are out there watching, listening, those that are thinking now about giving. May they give from their hearts. May we be cheerful givers of what you've done for us. Lord, I just pray that you would bless the rest of this service today. In a few minutes, when I come back to share the word, you just use me your vessel and your messenger today. We pray it all in Jesus'
Been coming back to this thought and this idea all week long, leading up to today, of in the midst of troubled times, letting God be our peace in the storm, letting God be the one that stills our hearts. No better way to do it than just come before Him as we prepare to hear His word today, and just in a prayer, in a song, ask Him to be still, to help us be still, to still our hearts, to still us, to give us that peace that only He can give. Be still and know that He is holy. Be still, O restless soul of mine. Bow before the Prince of Peace. Let the noise and clamor cease. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is faithful. Consider all that He has done. Stand in awe and be amazed. And know that He will never change. Be still. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is God. Be still. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know He is our Father. Come rest your head upon His breast. Listen to the rhythm of His unfailing heart of love, beating for His little ones, calling each of us to come. Be still. Be still.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Lynn. Yes. Be still and know that the Lord is there. Today, we just need to be still in our hearts. Let Him speak to us. Today, in my message, I do not have a scripture passage to begin with. I'll be quoting scriptures throughout the sermon itself. But I do want to let you know that today, you'll find a little different format that we have. The outline will actually be there for you on your screen, and you'll be able to see it, and I think a lot easier to follow. And as my understanding is, when you see some of that, I'm going to be down in the corner in a little box. And Caleb has always, as well as others, wanted to kind of put me in a box when they can, and so that's what's going to happen today. It'll help you to know your outlines a little bit better. Probably every one of us has played the game telephone. When you sit in a room with 10 to 12 people, and you begin to share with a person something, they pass it on to another, and it goes around the group all the way around until it gets back to you. But when the message gets back to you, the message you receive is very seldom the same thing you began with. In fact, usually you look and you say, how in the world did this message get so garbled? We've been talking for the last 3 to 4 weeks on what I really need and what people need. Today is our third sermon in what really I need is understanding. George Gallup has found out one of the 6 reasons and one of the 6 greatest needs of Americans is to be understood, to have somebody to listen, to have somebody care enough to listen, and to be able to listen closely enough to know what we are saying. Many of us have been amazed at how communication can be garbled. The following happened on a college campus. And it was a memo that was sent down through the ranks. First of all, it came from the president to the academic vice president. Here's what the memo said. Next Thursday, Halley's Comet will appear over this area. This is an event which occurs once every 75 years. Call the division heads, have them assemble their professors and students on the athletic field, and explain this phenomenon to them. If it rains, then cancel the observation and have the classes meet in the gym to see a film about the comet. Then there's the memo that came from the academic vice president to the division chairman. By order of the president, next Thursday, Halley's Comet will appear over the athletic field. If it rains, then cancel classes and report to the gym with your professors and students, where you'll be showing films, a phenomenal event which occurs once every 75 years. Then the division chairman sent out a memo to the professors. By order of the phenomenal president, next Thursday, Halley's Comet will appear in the gym. In case of rain over the athletic field, the president will give another order, something which occurs every 75 years. And then the professor sent a memo to the students. Next Thursday, the president will appear in our gym with Halley's Comet, something which occurs every 75 years. If it rains, the president will cancel the comet and order us out onto the phenomenal athletic field. And then a student writes home to its parents. When it rains next Thursday all over the school athletic field, the phenomenal 75-year-old president will cancel all classes and appear before the whole school in the gym, accompanied by Bill Haley and the Comets. It happens. It happens all the time because we get misunderstood and people don't listen. James tells us something that I think all of us need to adhere to, and he said, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Now we're going to take a little test, and it's going to be on your screen here, but I did not give you the way to answer it. So if you'll listen closely, in the mark beside it, if the answer is always, put in 4. If the answer is usually, give it 3 points. If the answer is rarely, give it 2 points. And if the answer is never, 1 point. 4 points, always. 3 points, usually. 2 points, rarely. 1 point, never. Now, here's what I like about this text. Nobody can get a 0. You at least will get 1 point. I like those kind of teachers, don't you? Now, I will not ask you for a grade, or when I see you next, I will not ask you how you did. This is just for you to find out what kind of listener you are. Number 1, do I allow the speaker to finish without interrupting? By the way, you need to be answering these questions for yourself, not your spouse or somebody you're thinking of, okay? Number 2, do I listen between the lines? That is, in other words, for the subtext. Do I not only listen for what is said, but do I listen for the intent of what is said? Number 3, do I actively try to retain important facts? Number 4, when writing a message, do I listen for and set down the key facts and phrases? Number 5, Do I repeat the details of an interview to the subject in order to get everything right? Number 6, do I avoid getting hostile or agitated when I disagree with a speaker? Number 7, do I tune out distractions when listening? Number 8, do I make an effort to seem interested in what the other person is saying? Now, when you're done marking your blanks, you see your scoring key and add them up and tally them together. If you get 26 or higher, you are an excellent listener, or an excellent liar, or both. If you get 22 to 25, you are better than average. If you get 18 to 21, you have room for improvement. If you have 17 or lower, you need to get out there and practice listening right away. You see, the greatest reason that relationships fail in this area of understanding is insensitivity to listening to other people. In fact, even your success in the marketplace goes a long way in the area of listening. A recent study by the Journal of Business Communication disclosed that good listeners hold a higher level position and are promoted more often than those who have less effective listening skills. David Burns, a psychiatrist with the University of Pennsylvania, wrote, "The biggest mistake you can make in trying to talk convincingly to put your highest priority on expressing your ideas and feelings. What most people really want is to be listened to be respected, and to be understood. And the moment that people see they are being understood, they become more motivated to understand your point of view." In other words, he said that if you would just go out of our way to let people know that we are listening to them, and that we want to understand how they feel and what they are saying, then immediately they will reciprocate. They will want to do the same for us. Now, I want to share with you this morning that we all need this message. But husbands, you need to listen more than anybody. My wife is probably across the street right now nodding her head. We need this message. We are weighed in the balance and found wanting. We are not always good listeners. There is a saying, if you want to make your mother happy, talk to her. If you want to make your father happy, listen to him. By our very nature, we are wanting to be more listened to than wanting to listen as men. A French priest said, some women become widows on their wedding day. What does that mean? Does it mean the husband dies? No. It is the fact that the husband quits listening. Again, there's a marvelous contrast before we are married and after we are married. Dating is a process of two people sitting down for hours listening to each other. We just listen and we ooh and we ah, and wow, it is incredible. The moment we get married, it's like we need a hearing aid. There was a quote in a newspaper several years ago that said, the average married couple that has been married 10 years or longer will only spend 37 minutes a week in communication. And one husband confessed, my wife says I don't listen, or at least I think that's what she said. Let me share with you how to improve your listening skills. Let me give you some things that we need. Here's the first one. Don't be prejudiced by first impressions. There is a tendency for us to immediately size up the person and say yay or nay, good or bad. And all that to affect the way we listen to them and try to understand them. Remember John 7. Stop judging by mere appearances and make a right judgment. Now, there are 6 reasons why first impressions are wrong. Number 1, we tend to judge others by our own self-image. It's very important. Let me just stop here long enough to say that if you usually have negative first impressions about people, there's a good chance you have a poor self-image. In other words, our first impressions are more colored. Listen carefully by what we are than by what the other person would seem to be to us. So therefore, if we have a poor self-image, there is a tendency for us to be critical, and especially first image types of relationships in themselves. Number 2, an impression is based on a single contact, which is unfair. Number 3, focusing on one trait often blinds us to the total person. It's important for us in a first impression to really know the person. So we focus in on something we don't like. We don't like what they have on. We don't like the hat they're wearing. We don't like the way they chew their gum. And we begin to immediately have a negative first impression of them, while in reality, we don't even know the person yet. Number 4, both people have to put their best foot forward. Number 5, we are highly influenced by people's external appearance. And number 6, we may be prejudiced from reports of others. In other words, others may have already filtered our mind and bent it. So don't be prejudiced with first impressions. The second thing about being a good listener: become less self-centered in listening skills. When I say become less self-centered, we will never be good listeners as long as we have our own agendas instead of listening to what the other person has to say. So I'm saying go with an other people focus when you're with others. Paul said it well in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4. Care about others as much as you care about yourselves. Jesus said that also. He said, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. And did you notice that Jesus and Paul both said that you don't love others more than yourself? You love them as yourself. And again, going back to the self-esteem of an individual we talked about last week, we're only capable of loving ourselves. So the better self-image that we have of ourselves, the higher the potential of loving others. But Paul and Jesus both said, care for others as you would care for yourselves. In other words, don't be self-centered. Sometimes people say, I have a hard time remembering names. I go up there and I meet somebody and I've forgotten their name in 5 seconds. You know why that happens, folks? It's not really because you can't remember a name. It's because in the first impression, at that first meeting, you are so self-conscious that you don't focus on them. And you don't focus on their name. You focus on what you're doing and what you're about to say to that person. Or what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And your mind is so much on what you're going to say and how you're going to say it that you hear their name and you kind of shut it out. Not consciously. Not because you want to shut out the name. In fact, you'd love to remember their name. It's just that your focus is more inward than it is outward. And because of that, you forget it so quickly. A tennis pro was giving a lesson to a student. And he watched the student for a while and then began to suggest better ways to hit the ball. Interestingly enough, the tennis student would interrupt the pro while the pro was trying to teach him. And he would tell him what he thought was wrong. So pretty soon the tennis pro would start to inject the ideas or teaching, and the student would interrupt and say, I think I know what I'm doing wrong. After a while, the tennis pro just started nodding. All he was doing was nodding and agreeing with whatever the student said, and afterwards an onlooker came up to the tennis pro and said, I can't believe that you let that arrogant, self-centered person run the show. And in fact, you were even agreeing with him after a while. The tennis pro said, I learned a long time ago that it is a waste of time to try to see answers to a person who just wants to buy echoes. Number 3. Oh, what a tough one this is. Withhold criticism and judgment in the beginning. When a person begins to talk to you, hold off your thoughts. Hold off your judgment. Hold off your criticism, especially in the beginning. Remember what the proverb writer said. He who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. In other words, hold off. Don't try to jump in. The reason that we don't need to jump in the beginning in the area of listening is because so many times we are basing what we're hearing on assumptions. And that assumption might be wrong. And so therefore we're already assuming they're wanting us to go a direction that they may not want us to go at all. And we jump in and we get ourselves in trouble. There are some wrong assumptions we make. Let me give you 4. Words mean the same thing to different people. Not always. We might even be using the same words and assuming that since it's the same, that it has the same meaning. When 2 people maybe use the same type of conversation and have 2 total different perspectives of the word itself. Number 2, there's only one way to see things. Now, being in the ministry now for 40 plus years, one of the first things you learn is there is not always one right way or one right answer. Many times, both parties may be right. In fact, in counseling, there have been times a husband will come in to say something to me, and I'll sit down and I'll listen to him, and I'm thinking, you have some good valid points. You're right. And then his wife will come in, and she will speak to me. And I'm like, that is not the same guy I just heard about. But you have some valid points. You're right. And sometimes I want to bring them both back in together and say, have you ever met one another? It reminds me the pastor was training an intern in counseling. So I had him come in the room and he said, now I want you to listen. And let me show you how to do this. So the husband came in, told him the story, a woeful story. The pastor kept saying, oh, you're so right. You are so right. You are so right. He dismissed him. The wife came in. She told the story, and he said, oh my, you are so right. You are so right. Yes, you are right. Well, the poor intern, he was totally confused. When the wife leaves, he says, wait a minute. I sat here, and you told the husband he was right. And you told the wife that she was right. And he said, they both can't be right. And the pastor said, oh, you are so right. I got laughs from a few here. I appreciate that. I hope you're all laughing out there. Number 3, everybody thinks like I do. Oh my, this is a terrible, terrible assumption. I suppose all of them, I suppose that, everybody has that. And I'm most guilty of this. It's a real weakness. I really admit it's a weakness in my life. I have a tendency to think that everybody else is going to think like I'm going to think. And boom, then off we go. When I have a great idea for the church, I just think everybody's going to just jump right in and think the way I do. But I found out that when you think that everybody thinks like you're going to think, then you think that everybody's going to think that way, and when somebody else thinks differently, you scratch your head and say, well, how can they think like this? Wrong assumptions. Wrong assumptions. Fourthly, I can figure out people's motives. Man, folks, you need to avoid this like a plague. It's horrible. Quit trying to figure out another person's motives. We realize that we look on the outward appearance and God sees the inward appearance. What happens is when you go beneath the exterior and you try to judge a person by what you think their motives are, we set ourselves up for total wrong judgments. We set ourselves up for criticisms that we should just absolutely avoid in our life. I would rather be wrong and not judge the motive than try to judge the motive and be wrong. Anybody that has ever had their motives attacked and knows that what they are being attacked on is not what their true motive was, knows the horrible frustration of trying to prove something you can't prove because it deals with the motive. Don't do it. Well, back to some good ways of listening. Number 4, the fourth way to improve your listening skill is, here it is, keep calm. Some of you are thinking, right now, what's going around, you're telling me to keep calm? Yes, keep calm. I'm saying that especially when we are being criticized, or we are being attacked, or confronted, there is a tendency for us to immediately answer back. We get defensive. We tell reasons why we're not like we are. That's just a tendency that we all have. Keep calm. Solomon in Proverbs says, in Proverbs 19:11, a man's wisdom gives him patience. And Paul told Timothy, keep your head in all situations. Keep calm. Fifthly, listen with empathy. There are several ways we can listen to others, but listen with empathy. Jesus did that so well, as in Mark chapter 10, when Jesus looked at him and loved him. Now, the 4 different styles of listening. There's empathetic. When you listen with empathy, you're non-judgmental. That is where they capture the feeling of the person and reflect it back to them, summarizing what they said, offering no advice. The article that I read on this said that 22% of the people use this. Now, I'm not for sure about that, because I don't know who you know, but I don't know very many people who listen without offering advice. I know in our family, we will offer advice. We'll offer advice to each other. In fact, we'll offer unsolicited advice. In fact, we bring up the issues. It's not easy to listen to a person and after it's all said, just love them and walk away. I mean, especially when you know you're right. I mean, if you're right, it's just a sin to withhold information, don't you think? Kidding, folks. I hope you all get it. Advice. Secondly, the listening is with advice. This is where they offer unsolicited advice. I feel a lot more at home with this. See, the problem is sometimes a person wants only an ear. However, we may be too busy thinking of what to say rather than listen. 35% of people do that. Asking for information is the third. That's okay for the first few minutes of a conversation, but after a while, it becomes interrogation. That's not conversation, used by 26%. And then there is the critic's response. This is offering disapproval. He listens and he writes them off. To be understood, it's not as important to listen to the words of a person as to understand their feelings. What happens in this, in being understood, there is a tendency for us to take their words and begin to offer advice based on what they've said. And a person's feelings, what they say, may be totally different. What people want to have in being understood, the first thing they want is not advice on what they're saying. What they really want is for you to look at them and say, I understand how you feel. They want acceptance of their feelings before acceptance of their words. And normally we bypass their feelings and go straight to the words and what they're saying. And when people say they want to be understood, they're basically saying, I'm really not looking for advice. I'm not even asking for a critique on what I've done, as much as I just want somebody to say, I understand how you feel. Number 6. The 6th part of being a better listener is to be an active listener. The proverb writer Solomon said, the purpose of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. It's a great verse. Let me give you a wonderful definition of listening. Listening is wanting to hear. Listening is wanting to hear. In other words, we are listening with a desire to really hear and understand. Now, when I say be an active listener, do you know why it's hard to be an active listener? You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about when somebody is talking and you have mentally left the room. When you are watching a television program and somebody comes in to say something to you and you're thinking, I don't think it's that important, and you continue to watch your program. When you're reading your newspaper and somebody comes in to talk to you and you just keep the newspaper up and you're not listening. Every one of us sometimes leaves the room mentally. And every one of us has been caught unaware, not listening. One of the reasons why is because we are not an active listener. And the reason why we're not an active listener, now I found this statistic very important, very amazing. Did you know that you can talk 120 words per minute? And you can listen to 480 words a minute? You can listen 4 times the speed of talk. So what happens if a person is not very fast in their talking, and it takes them a while to get it out, and they are slow? The active listener is moving on to something else. They've already heard what they want to hear. I love the story of 2 psychiatrists talking. One was old and one was very young. Interestingly enough, they were always very fresh in the morning, and they would eat breakfast together. But by the end of the day, the old guy was still as fresh as a daisy, and the young guy was exhausted, totally exhausted. And he came to the old guy and he said, hey, we start out fresh in the morning. By the evening, I am exhausted from listening to all those people, and you're still as fresh as a daisy. How is that? The old doctor said, because I never listen. Keeps me fresh that way. Number 7, paraphrase and summarize to clarify communication. In other words, as they say things, paraphrase and summarize. Make sure that you know what they said. Make sure that they know that you're listening and understanding. 7% of what we say is communicated verbally. 43% of what we say is communicated vocally. And 50% of what we say is communicated visually. So watching the person is just as important as listening to the person. You know, I think back when I was a kid, and I'd go off to my grandparents' house and call my mom and dad and just talk to them. All we could do was hear them on the other end of the line. But now, I call my grandkids and I can see them on the other end, talking to them by Facebook and all the various ways, and FaceTiming and all those kind of things. It's interesting. When I was a kid, sometimes they didn't get what I was doing on the other end. But I can see what they're doing on the other end. Or maybe if the kids are acting up, I can say, would you like me to FaceTime your mom and show them how you're acting right now? Number 8, recognize the healing power of the listening ear. Recognize that when you listen to a person without any kind of advice, there's a healing that goes on just because you listen. James chapter 5, verse 16 tells us, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Healing occurs when 3 things happen. The other person feels accepted. The other person feels loved. And when we become involved in other person's needs. And this is my last point. Do something about what you hear. In other words, not only become an active listener, but as Jesus said, become a doer, not just a hearer. In other words, as you hear whatever they are saying to you, if you can help them, or if you can apply something to their life, help them do that. James tells us, obey God's message and don't fool yourselves just by listening to it. What does that mean? It may mean that after you listen to them, you scribble them a note to just let them know that you appreciate them. A thank you note, a quick call, those kind of things are what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, our staff, we have decided to divvy up some names so that over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it takes, we can give you a call and just hear your voice and have a chance to communicate with you. The Bible says, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. I pray that there was something that was said that can maybe help you today be a better spouse, a better father, a better husband, better wife, better employee, better employer, better Christian. So much of our successful relationship is dependent not on our ability to tell God what we need, but to listen to God. Be still, O my heart. The Spirit of God is our great teacher. We need to take this message and apply it where we need it in ourselves. We're going to come to a time of invitation. I don't know how the Lord has spoken to your heart, but if you want to send us a message, if you want to talk to one of us, get on our Facebook page. All the information of how you need to contact us is all there. We would love to hear from you. If you're not a child of God, if you want to know how to be saved, if you're ready to be saved, I want you to pray this little prayer. Dear Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart and save my soul. And thank you, Jesus, for saving me. Sing
Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me beneath the healing cleansing flood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I work him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust. Let's sing one more verse. Yes, 'tis sweet to trust in Jesus, just from sin and self to cease, just from Jesus simply taking life and rest and joy and peace. Jesus, trust Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust Him more.
We are so glad you joined us this morning. By the way, I just want to let you know, if you do need to come by the church or drop something off, you might want to call the church or call one of us on our cell numbers to make sure that we are in the building, that we are here. Stacy does not come in every day, so you might want to give a call. I don't want you just to waste a trip, and let us know what you need. We'll help you out. Stay tuned after this. You will hear my wife, Miss Cindy, do our children's church message for you. And then on Wednesday, I'll have a devotion. Pastor Caleb will have a thing for our youth, and Pastor Jason will have our kids connection on Wednesday. So we look forward to being with you again next Sunday, because according to what I'm hearing, we're at least going to be out till the 20th of April is how things are sounding. So we will be here with you through virtual, showing you everything next Sunday. May God bless you.
With the lips let us sing one confession, with our hearts hold to one true God. For He